no fun, boy. Had an accident.
Let's put a smile on his face.
Leave him alone. And get off my property. You're trespassing.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Tom. You are never going to guess what time it is.
I think I might. I feel like it's like 36 minutes late for us to record a podcast.
It might be. It might be, Tom. And you're never going to guess. It's close. You're right. You're technically right. But you're also
I'm getting that
a
feeling.
bit wrong. Yeah, because it's also time for another episode of Tom and Jeff Watch Batman.
We sure do.
We
Again.
sure do. Oh, Tom, they don't know that.
I know they don't know that, but now they do.
Was there a recording problem? There sure was.
It might have
Did
been.
we find out 35 minutes into recording? We sure did. Tom, we are about to embark on a journey that the fans have been dying for us to embark on.
Just full-throated, desperate shrieking
Just
for us to cover
begging.
this show for years now.
Begging for it. And we don't listen to that.
No. We usually we look at it, we kind of laugh at it. You know, we enjoy your pain and
We took our own
frustration.
pace. Yeah. It's just us, man. Mm-hmm. It's fine. We're doing great.
Yeah.
But we do appreciate the feedback. Of
No, yeah.
course.
Please keep
Of
sending it.
course.
I need your delicious tears.
Yes. Tell us what you want us to do next, and we will not do it.
Yes.
Anyway, we've been doing this. We're doing, of course, Batman Beyond. And so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to do a little bit, because, Tom, you've never seen this show before.
Correct. No, I have. Not only have I not ever seen it before today, but I have, going into the show, I know almost nothing about it. I didn't watch it when it was out. I haven't really read anything about it. I'm not looking up Wikipedia summaries or anything like that to try to like get the Deaniverse canon straight or anything like that. I have no concept of what this show was aside from it's Batman in the future, and that's it. That's the only idea of what the show was that I had.
It's interesting too. There's a very fascinating history to it, and it's kind of cool to sort of view it through the lens of like, oh, it's been 22 years since it came out, because it debuted in January of 1999.
Wow.
I know. I was right about to graduate high school. And then therefore I was like, it's funny that like I was about to graduate high school and I was like, I don't need this show anymore. I did watch it a little bit upon first release.
I needed it a little bit.
I did. I watched a little bit of it. I didn't like freak out if I missed episodes. Mm-hmm. I was just like, well, this is fucking life. I didn't really care about the show. And then I sort of developed a much bigger appreciation for it when it became sort of available on DVD and then streaming. Because it was on Netflix pretty early, streaming-wise. And that was pretty fucking rad.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
It was either Netflix or it was Amazon Prime when I had access to it. But it was like, it was available earlier on than I would. And I watched it. I was like, oh, this show fucks.
Oh, nice.
And so, yeah. So I'm going to do a little bit of a history with you, Tom, to get you sort of caught up on the show, because this is what I do. I had said previously it was it premiered, I believe, January 10th, 1999.
Okay.
And so basically, this is a show, Tom, that nobody wanted to make.
Interesting.
This is a show that nobody that made it wanted to make it. This is actually a show because now a thing to remember too is that, because I know most people remember the New Adventures of Batman and Robin being on like a Fox Kids morning thing, but this is actually a show that was sort of put out on Kids WB. So it made that shift over because Warner's like, this is our property.
Yeah, WB was like kind of not really just getting started, but they were still in their early years.
Yeah, but they did come out of the gate pretty strong. And here's what happens. Okay, this is actually a show that came about as a result of a studio executive making one very specific demand.
Oh, yeah?
Which was, give us teen Batman. Which is a recipe for disaster 99% of the time. if a studio executive makes a demand, it's probably going to be bad.
Yeah, and that's interesting because this is such a strange idea and so far removed from what had been successful for Batman in the 90s that it's really surprising to me that this was something that the studio wanted and not a passion project of one of the creators, because it really seems like a passion project. It's such an outside the box idea for a Batman show.
Tom, it sure is. It's definitely one of those things where you're not, like, you look at it and you're like, okay, this is something that somebody had planned. This is something that they were like, well, this is going to be our next leap forward, but it's just not the case. Because what was happening at Warner Brothers and WB specifically was that they were getting massive commercial success with shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Dawson's Creek. Shows that really appealed to like the whole like teen coming of age thing and the heroism stuff. And they're like, well, let's have something like that.
Huh.
Let's have something for the new millennia.
Mm-hmm.
Something extreme, Tom. And Bruce Timm was like, I don't want to do that. I just don't want to.
Right. If that had been the pitch, like, we want Dawson's Creek Batman, I would have had this. I'd have been, no, not for me.
No, I'm not signing up for that at all.
I am all set, but you guys go ahead.
As a matter of fact, we're good. And so, but he's given that, and so now you're giving Bruce Timm sort of this idea of like, well, we have to make a teen Batman, but that'll fuck up all the hard work we've been doing for the better part of a decade. What do you do?
That's true.
Like, what do you do? Like, you want to continue the storyline that you've been working on. You don't want to have to rebuild from the ground up. Well, Bruce Timm's sort of by the seat of his pants is like, well, what if it's in the future? And he's like Bruce Wayne's protege. And they're like, that's fucking great. Greenlit, go. And so like an immediate green light like that, you're like, that's fucking awesome, man. But they were like, greenlit, go. Also, it has to be available for next season. And I don't know if you've ever tried to create an entire animated series from scratch.
I haven't. Well, I have.
I
have, and none of them have made it to the air, Jeff, if you can believe that.
There's some errors can occur, some things that can make it not happen, and that is exactly what the case is here. It's going to be a nightmare, but they're like, okay, so here's what you got to do. Excuse me, that's not going to be the case here. I said it is going to be the case here because, Tom, I'm very stupid. So they're trying to find a way to fit it into Batman the Animated Series canon, and because they had to go from pitch to production so fast, it was this like massive blitzkrieg of sort of creativity trying to make this work. And Bruce Timm sort of after doing that, he's like, okay, well, what have I backed myself into the corner of? Well, now I have an opportunity to make sort of like a Spider-Man-ish version of Batman, meaning somebody who has to balance the troubles of being a kid with the secret identity danger of crime fighting. Like, how can we do that in the Batman universe?
Mm-hmm. And also, we want to have the same wailing guitar note open its theme song. I don't know if you noticed that.
We're going to talk about
like
that.
Like the is the same as the note that opens the Spider-Man animated series. Anyway,
let's put those in the beginning of everything.
Honestly, yes.
Because that's something that we're gonna do. That opening intro, because we're gonna talk about that sort of in depth. Is, in my opinion, the most this thing fucks intro that I've ever seen. The whole package of it is just so fucking bananas, and it's strong. It's so strong.
It is pretty dope.
I don't care what show this is for. I'm watching it if I see this intro.
It really does. Man, it's such like it reminds me of like the anti-piracy ads in like the early 2000s. It's real like rapid fire editing, Smash Mouth, like MTV promo. It feels like a wrestler's entrance video during the Attitude Era.
Yeah, it is definitely of that Attitude Era thing. But we'll talk about the intro. We'll jump ahead to it. So the intro is designed almost it's designed and sort of animated by Darwin Cook. And if you don't know who Darwin Cook is, I know you do, and I know we've just talked about this. Maybe you're a new subscriber. Maybe you don't know shit about who we've talked about. This is the same guy that did New Frontier. He's the writer and illustrator of the comic New Frontier. And I believe the consultant for the show. And I believe possibly writer for the movie. Darwin Cook is considered this... He was like a legendary avant-garde auteur animator. He was super, super talented. Everybody knew that this guy was going to be going like crazy places. Like this guy was nuts. And so what you have is you have this intro that has this very, very hard sort of like new techno. It's like a mix of like almost like new metal guitar mixed with like high-end electronic music.
Yeah, it's it's industrial speed metal, pretty much.
Yes, it has very rave vibes to it, where you have like really powerful guitars, and especially that like the wow, like I mean shredding guitars, and then you also have like these like break beats of like like these really like digital chaotic sounds, and it all works together to have this sort of controlled chaos where the animation is also very gritty and grainy. It is mixed media.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it looks like what people think were CGI were actually like filmed sculptures.
Oh, dope.
Like there is Bruce Wayne's face, like old Bruce Wayne's face, and it looks like people think it's CG. It's actually a fucking sculpture that they did of old Bruce Wayne, and then they filmed it and sent it to Darwin. There's like an action figure in one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some stuff that's live action. You can super tell, yeah.
And it really grabs sort of, I guess, the chaos of the late 90s.
Yeah.
In creating, but it's like this controlled, slick chaos.
Yeah. It's like... it feels like street heroin, but like in a really shiny package.
It's of its time in a way, and you know, a thing I may have mentioned this to you before, but like one of the things that I've been doing a lot lately is I've been watching like 90s commercials in the morning. Like when I wake up, because like they motivate me. It's like this Pavlovian thing where they motivate me to get my ass out of bed and like make my bed and get ready. Because that's what I used to do as a kid to get ready for school. I'd have the TV on. Were you guys the TV in the morning crew?
No, usually no. Yeah, we usually didn't when I was a real little kid. Only when I was like a real little kid. But like from that point on, it was just our mornings were always so rushed. After that I didn't like cartoons during the week, just weren't a thing for me, really.
I'm not a sleep in guy, so there was no rush to my mornings. Like I was getting up at like 6 anyway. So like, you know, I would take my time, but so I'd have TV on, and it's funny because this definitely has that sort of like chaotic 90s commercial vibes to it. Where do you remember when it was like commercials were almost like anti-commercials?
Yeah.
Like we were really lucky, I think, to get the pocket of children's advertising, because it's a real flash in the pan that'll never be redone. For you
kids, or whoever,
for the kids,
for all the kids out there. No, for the people who didn't grow up specifically in the 90s, there was like a period in the that began kind of like in like I don't know, or like 92, 93. Anyway, it was probably before that. Anyway, the 90s really decided that like every single product, no matter whether it was like a TV commercial, magazine ad, or a little ad on the back of the comic book or whatever, like every single product was calling you specifically a bitch for not using their product.
Yeah, the entirety of the zeitgeist was anti-authority, but in an aggressive way.
Really aggressive, like even yeah.
It's not like this, like, why don't... It's like, it was like before, it was like, hey, how come kids don't like Apple Jacks? You know, how come kids like Apple Jacks? Doesn't taste like apples. And they'd be like, Dad, you silly goof. And now it's like, fuck you, Dad.
Right,
You don't
like
fucking know. You don't fucking know what it's like to be a teen.
the
Like Applejack. Fuck you.
the honeycomb monster slashes the dad's throat.
Dude, Honeycomb. Like that guy out of nowhere.
Out of
They're just
nowhere,
like,
they just made their mascot a fucking
yeah.
maniac.
How about a rabid dust bunny on cocaine?
Yeah, yeah.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, let's do it. Like everything was extreme. And like all the I remember one of my do you remember OK Soda? Do you remember their ads?
Yeah, vaguely.
They were the most aggressively Gen X MTV ads I've ever seen, where they were like very fucking like chill. I remember, or they were very much like you'd be reading an OK Soda ad and it would feel like a pictorial in the New Yorker or something like that. They were very
Like the J. Peterman catalog.
I think Jaime Hernandez did one, or Daniel Klaus. Like, so really like independent artists were doing these like really weird, trippy fucking things. The commercials were so fucking wild, man. We could do a whole episode on fucking bubble tape commercials.
Oh man.
Your principal hates bubble tape. You better read it. You better get some. This Capri Sun will kill your fucking dad.
Hell yeah.
How about that? How about this? I remember there was an ad.
These gushers will waterboard your grandmother.
Yeah. Gushers are going to turn you into a monster.
Yeah.
That was the ad for Gushers. Remember? Your head turned into fruit.
That's right.
Fuck
yeah.
you. Fuck you. You're fruit now.
Yeah. What, you
Like,
don't
just
like this?
the
What, you afraid to be fruit or something? Like some kind of bitch?
Yeah, what are you, some kind of non-bitch fruit motherfucker?
Yeah. That's like that was the tone of every single ad aimed at children in the 90s.
Look up any Welcome to the Next Level Genesis ad.
Genesis, that was like their whole mission statement to set themselves apart from Nintendo.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they did. Genesis does what Nintendo don't. That was like their whole thing was like, yeah, we are designed, we're cool. Mm-hmm. These are for kids and we're fucking cool.
Is Sonic going to whip his dick out? I don't know. Better buy a Sega and find out.
He fucking might. You stupid little son of a bitch.
He's going to sit
Buy
down,
a Sega.
pierce his fucking hedgehog ear.
I can still remember the, you still don't have a Sega CD? What are you waiting for? Nintendo to make one? You have seen the games, right?
I'm kind of waiting
answer,
for
man.
Nintendo to make
Sure.
one.
Yeah, I've been waiting for Nintendo to make a Sega CD this whole time. They didn't make it. Anyway, here's Sewer Shark. Anyway, so
Adjusting my glasses. You see, Jeff, the PlayStation began as a peripheral for Nintendo. Anyway.
Yeah, it sure did.
Of course
Sure
you knew
did.
that. Of course you knew that.
Dude, I remember watching the Console Wars documentary that came out recently.
Oh, I
and
haven't
being
watched
like,
it yet. I haven't watched it yet.
Well, what's funny is like I knew everything, but I was like, I'm learning something.
I'm still fat. Yeah. That's like
And I
me
was like,
watching Dark Side of the Ring. I'm like the same way. I'm like, I know all of this, but this is still fascinating.
Yes, I do like that. But so it's very much has that sort of like that elder millennial creeping into not necessarily Gen X, but that sort of extreme vibe to it, but in a very cool way that didn't seem like it was trying too hard. It just, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And for a cartoon on a network called Kids WB, that intro just shreds so fucking hard.
Yeah. It's pretty dope. It still feels pretty of its time, but it was it was jarring watching it now.
Yeah.
For this, I said earlier that I didn't have any preconception really of Batman Beyond. I certainly had no idea that this is what its opening credit sequence was. So I was not prepared for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And why would you be?
Why would you? I was expecting something more in tone with the other DC superhero shows that we've seen, and it is not.
You sure didn't. You weren't getting. There's no like big drum and cymbal.
No,
there's no horns.
Yeah,
in this. There's just this intro is gonna beat the shit out of your dad.
Yeah,
that's how hardcore
it's
it
gonna
is.
make you watch while it
Yeah.
kicks your dad's ass.
Yeah, Darwin Cook is gonna cuck your dad right in front of him. You see this? I fucking made this.
Yep.
Give me your wife. Hell yeah, Darwin. So
rest in power, Darwin.
So you dropped your crown, King.
He's beating your dad with a giant cartoon propeller wrench.
So what we find out here is like, okay, so we have to make this show. We have to make it real fast. We need Kevin Conroy on as sort of the glue. Kevin Conroy is gonna be the bridge for this show.
Yeah.
If you don't get Kevin Conroy, the show fails. And they call Kevin, and it's a tough sell for Kevin Conroy.
Right, because why
you're
would
like,
he
hey,
want to suddenly be the supporting character in a Batman show?
Yeah, he's been Batman since 1991, right?
92, I
Was it
think.
92?
But yeah,
Yeah.
it was right after Batman Returns.
Yeah, and so it's like we're talking like around 99. So you're like, this has been like a better part of a decade, paying him pretty fucking well. Mm-hmm. And it's like, hey, we got a Batman show we want you to do. He's like, okay, I'm listening. And they're like, you're not Batman. And he did it, probably because they offered him a fuck ton of money to do it.
Well, I'm sure they did, but also, like, once you get past it's kind of unexpected veneer, like the writing is very identifiably of Deaniverse quality, or at least Deaniverse at this time.
Yes,
Like,
and
it's good writing.
I'm glad you brought up the writing, because this is actually a big struggle that they had in pre-production, was that a lot of the freelance writers that they had hired and been working with the whole time kept writing stories about Bruce Wayne.
Right, because that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, well, sure, but they're like, that's not the show.
Yeah, of course.
The show it's not about Bruce Wayne being a mentor. It's about this person who's mentored by Bruce Wayne. And that's very important. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody really cares about a cartoon about a 75-year-old man.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who it is. Like, what we want is, we want something relatable for teens. We want to show the coming of age, the growth, the problems, and I hate to keep going back to the character, but the Spider-Man problems.
Yeah.
How am I going to support my family? How am I going to protect my girlfriend? How am I going to go on dates when I have to do this fucking gig? Like, I'm a kid and and I'm not owned by an old man right now. He's my employer, I'm not his ward. So that adds another layer to it.
I just thought I'm not going to say it on here because I don't want to blow it up for him. But like that line of thinking about the themes of the show made me think about a very specific bit that Alex Schmidt does in his stand-up.
I love the rare opportunities where you get to see Alex having fun on stage.
Oh yeah, it's the bit about like kid comedian, I think is what the setup was. Anyway, you probably remember what I'm talking about. Yeah. But anyway,
I think I've been there whenever Alex has performed stand-up. I think I've been around for all of the times. So they ended up, like, it's funny because like we're like, yeah, they had to like basically kind of like keep telling these writers to fuck off and write stuff for Terry, that they ended up one of their like writers for the pilot was Stan Berkowitz, who had moved on to live action and came back to animation for this because they needed him.
Damn.
Because he worked so well with these guys and had worked on so many episodes that he gets it.
Yeah, I'm just picturing that phone call. He gets the call, say, hey, what's up? How's it going? It's like, it's going okay. We need you to come back, like right now.
Yeah, it's very Berkowitz beyond. He has another heart attack. So of course now we're in pre-production. We're like, oh, the writing was a nightmare. The design team is going to be. I mean, we're talking like, I don't think that I guarantee you half the design team got divorced in 1998.
Oh, hell yeah. No.
Because there's a 0% chance that these families didn't lose. Because, like, they had to create something entirely new. Like, this wasn't the shift from Batman to Superman, where you have reusable design stuff. You have an already clear-cut design of, okay, well, this is the era that we're going in. Metropolis will look like this. We've done some stuff before. Like, this is all brand new. And they have to create a whole new cityscape and era.
And entirely new characters and new models for the existing characters. It's a completely new, like from the ground up, you couldn't really reuse anything for this show.
Yeah. While Superman and Batman were still technically in production.
Oh, good.
So, like, you can imagine. And you see it, that you hear stories, and I've listened to a lot of stuff and interviews about this, and I obviously for this episode came prepared, but it has a very sort of golden age of comics vibe, or even silver age, of these artists sort of like being locked in an apartment for a weekend with 8 other artists, and then leaving the next on Sunday night or Monday morning they show up with like a 64-page comic. And you're like, what happened? They're like, we didn't sleep. We just fucking worked. Tom slept in the bathtub. Like, this wasn't like, it was a fucking nightmare, but we did it. And so that's it. I mean, obviously, and again, you said that before, they're not reusing villains.
Yeah, they can't by design.
Yeah. And it's very rare to see that sort of aspect in it, where there's sort of like that lack of reuse with them. They're like, well, now we have to create things, and they're telling stories of like, they'd have these production meetings where the artists would just like drop characters in front of the producers and be like, this guy is a fire guy, and then here you go, like, here's the design and here's the gist of what I intended, and feel free to turn this into somebody.
Yeah. That's I got the chance to do an interview with David Wise a few years ago while I was still at Cracked, that unfortunately never ran through a series of issues that were 99.9% all my fault. But he had the same thing to say about working on Turtles, Transformers, anything from the 80s you saw David Wise was like the showrunner for. And it was always that. It was a situation of like, they dropped like the demutagenizer on his desk and like, here, write that into a story. He's like, all right.
Yeah, right. Like a toy shows up and it's like, here you go.
Here you go.
And
All
they did it. They did have toy stuff, but it wasn't actually, they didn't have to like create stuff for the toys, primarily because with a Batman kind of character, I think that the teams have learned that you can just put Batman in a weird suit anyway. You don't need to sell it by putting it in the cartoon.
No, yeah, you can make
like
Kenner made like 1,000 fucking different Batman toys that are just slightly different colors of his costume with a different accessory.
Yeah, but you've never seen Arctic Attack Batman
No.
show up in a movie or a cartoon, but you definitely had the toy.
Yeah.
So like they kind of learned that they were like, look, just you make the show, we'll make the toys. And that's actually really freeing. And they they have a toy line. It's not a particularly great toy line. It does what it needs to do, but it's not real. We don't get like a proper Batman Beyond, because I believe he was almost like a translucentish blue, the one that they released of him. We don't really get a proper Batman Beyond until I believe like DC Direct ended up doing one based on like Ed McGuinness and stuff. Yeah, I think the first true one is Ed McGuinness, because he shows up in Superman Batman, and I think that's actually technically Tim Drake. But you can work around it. It's fine.
All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of convoluted stuff. There was like Burger King kids meals in 2000, so they were definitely like obviously like deal minded, but it wasn't the point. Fans did not really care about this show when it started.
Speaking as a Batman fan who did not care about this show, yes, that is accurate.
Same. It's very obligation to me. I think of it a lot like the same way I think of Solo, the movie, where I was like, I saw it out of obligation, but I did enjoy it.
You mean the Mario Van Peebles film, right?
Oh, yeah, well, of course. I am obligated to see all of the MVPs.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, he's the MVP.
Yeah, that's the name. That's why we have that name for a reason. So the fans were uninterested at first, but the thing that actually really started to pull people in is that the pilot is so fucking adult and so fucking dark.
It is. It's very well written. There's not a lot of action in it. It's mostly establishing the world and these characters and their relationships, which is especially remarkable for a cartoon pilot.
And the action that is in there is good, but it is very character driven, and it's very heavy. And there are things where if you're watching it as sort of somebody in their late teens or early 20s, you're like, oh shit, this is actually for me.
Yeah.
Because there is stuff that kids are not going to pick up on that are really important. But the response wasn't great, but eventually it becomes this like massively popular thing where, you know, it's think of it as like the Office space of Batman cartoons.
Yeah, where
Where
it's meek initial splash, but then as time goes on, word of mouth really starts to grow. Yeah.
Yeah, it just starts shredding everywhere, and it doesn't pull back.
To the point where we mentioned earlier, this is like the most requested thing. And when we started the show, I fully expected everybody to be like, when are you going to get to the animated series? Because in my mind, that was like the big thing. But no, we got way more about Batman Beyond.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's like, when are you getting to Batman Beyond? And I was like, I don't know, 2039?
Yeah. That was
got
like
a long ways to go, bro.
I was like stunned the first time that showed. I was like, Batman Beyond? Like, that's the one you want us to get to?
Well, here's the thing about Batman Beyond is that the stride has been taken so well that to be able to start something new, what you have is more consistency and quality. And I know I've said it before, but I'm going to keep saying it. Batman the Animated Series is not as great as we remember it.
No, it's not. And we just went through it, so like we've done it.
There is a massive lack of consistency in quality of each. You know, you talk like fucking Tiger. Like, how many werewolves can we have in how many werewolf episodes can we have?
Right.
Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
But Batman Beyond is consistently great, and it's also relatively short-lived, all things considered. It's only 52 episodes in a movie. Mm-hmm. Which, when you look at, like, you know, cartoons for kids, they usually, you know, fucking He-Man's first season was like 64 episodes or something.
Oh, yeah. You could see it.
You sure can. But so Batman Beyond does sort of have that aspect of like it shows sort of like a physically vulnerable Bruce, which you've never seen before. You have a new character that's not Robin. That is sort of like, and what we're going to find out, Terry, is that he's almost like a synthesis of the three Robins.
That's true. Yeah. I was thinking about that watching it because he so clearly looks like a Robin that's always like in your mind. And he's kind of like, of course, this is what Bruce would do. Like, if he got too old and infirm, he would just get himself yet another child soldier and put him inside a robot suit that he can control if he needs to.
Yeah, but it is sort of like, as we find out and as we're going to go through here, it is very accidental, and that's important to them to do that, to make it not necessarily this sort of aggressive, like child soldier recruitment thing that he's doing. But yeah, and you'll notice that as we go through, because he's got like sort of like the natural brain of Tim Drake, because Tim Drake is considered the smartest of the Robins.
Yeah.
But he also has that sort of like that rough sort of like anti-establishmentness of Jason Todd. Mm-hmm. But also sort of like that coolness of Dick Grayson.
Right. Like Dick was, I think, well, I was going to say I think Dick's like the closest to Bruce, but that's not accurate. Maybe the closest in skill, but anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, Dick is just the oldest, and he's considered sort of the rock that all others are broken upon. So,
yeah.
You know, and that we've seen that. You know, last week we saw that with Jason and sort of not being Dick and what that did to him. So now, Tom, we are officially going to start Batman Beyond Episode 1, Rebirth Part 1.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a cold open. It starts, it's nighttime. We see Bunny Vreeland. We got a Vreeland, Tom.
Hell yeah.
We open our pilot with a Vreeland, and that's also something to pay attention to that you're going to, I think, notice a lot as we go through here, is that this thing is like laced with Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Like there's 2 scoops of Easter eggs in every box here.
That was one of the most surprising things to me. Again, coming in with like no knowledge of what the show is, I was surprised that it was such a direct sequel to the animated series.
Yes, and they really do a great job of tying it in and like nudge, winking the fans and being like, see, we're not we care more than you do. So we have the cold open again. So the news is talking about Bruce Wayne sort of avoiding an attempted takeover by Powers Tech. So this is taking place in 2019. And it actually has very 2019 vibes. It's not very futuristic. We're going to see one guard that has dipshit triangle glasses, but other than that, they predicted the return of Max Headroom glasses.
They sure did. And man, I'm waiting. Like I'm seeing them a little bit, but I want them to like really come back in vogue.
Tom, be the change you wish to see in the world.
We could be that patient zero, man. If you want to go grab some Venetian blind sunglasses right now.
Do you think people will want nearly 40-year-old internet comedian men to be the fashion templates of the world?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Zero doubt or hesitation when I say that.
Yeah. So basically, stock in Wayne Enterprises and Powers Tech is at an all-time high because of the merger rumors and stuff. Okay. Meanwhile, the kidnappers, they talk about the kidnappers of debutante Bunny Vreeland have received their ransom payment, but they have not released Bunny Vreeland.
They sure haven't.
And Tom, their plan is to shoot her in the fucking face.
It sure is.
That's their big plan. Get this woman and then shoot her right in the face. They're walking around without masks on. You know what the deal is.
Yeah. One guy's eating a sandwich. Like, they super don't care.
I mean, you got to eat, Tom.
I know. It's just fun. I couldn't get enough of this lone hero in a beanie and tiny little sunglasses, just eating a white bread sandwich.
Just these little glasses eating a ham sandwich.
Like, they know they're like, I don't know, 60 seconds away from murdering someone. He's just eating a sandwich.
Yeah. Well, he's outside, you know.
Yeah, that's true. True.
He's outside in regular clothes, and he gets knocked out by what we see as Batman. And Batman is in the Batman Beyond costume, but he's not Terry. And we know that because Terry is a much more lean and sleek, Nightwing-sized person.
Mm-hmm. However, it could be Terry Bradshaw.
It is a man of... It's clear that it's Bruce. Like, you get the gist that it's like, okay, that's definitely like Batman, the animated series, Batman's body. In that, and it looks, I think it looks really slick. And I know you had mentioned to me before you're not a huge fan of the design.
I'm not wild about the Batman Beyond design, which is one of the reasons I didn't get interested into the show when it was out. And I'm still not nuts about it, but it might grow on me the more I watch the series. So we'll see.
If you think about it, it makes the most sense. It makes way more sense than Batman's costume.
Yeah, but I've been looking at Batman's costume for like 4 years.
Well, that's it. What it is you've been given something that you have never had before, and you're like, all right, well, I gotta find out if I like Indian food. You know, like, fine, I'll eat it, but like, don't expect me to like everything I like right away. That's perfectly fine. But it does make sense from like a stealth perspective to not have the fucking cape. Like, remember that a lot of times we see that the cape is used as sort of distraction and armor. But it also is cumbersome and problematic sometimes to have out on an adventure.
Yes, it is. It's a lot like that 7 Mary 3 song.
Batman Beyond.
Future Batman.
To my girl. Anyway, Batman flies up and spies on the kidnappers and then beats the Christ out of them and then has a heart attack.
He beats them so bad he almost dies.
He has a sympathy heart attack for them.
Right, yeah, he's got sympathy pain.
Because it's fucking brutal. And it makes sense because he's gone through roughly 3 decades of intense physical torture every day. Mm-hmm. Batman shouldn't last this long.
It's amazing he still has a skeleton. I gotta be honest.
How much of a tolerance to fear gas are you going to have to keep those heart rates down? Because
the number of strokes he must have had, like that he noticed, is probably in the dozens, and that he just didn't notice, like he has no idea he had them, probably 50.
How many times do you think he's been like electrocuted? How's that heart rhythm going to be?
He goes to the doctor and gets an X-ray, and they're just like, Jesus Christ, I don't know what's going on in there.
Yeah, like, I don't know what's happening here. So, I just know I don't like it.
We got your images back from your CT scan, and they are haunted, as you'll see here.
Your heart is a scar.
Yeah. Just a big
It's
scar.
almost entirely scar tissue. Sorry, but things aren't going to go well for you, like, again.
Your
Like, ever again.
Your toxicology report came back where all the results just form a skull and crossbones. We don't know why it did that.
Yeah, you melted our printer.
Yeah. The combination of just fear gas and Smilex coursing through his veins.
Says here you have a low-grade black plague. I'm building up a resistance. Okay, well, we got to get some antibiotics for that. I have to learn.
You're covered in radiation burns.
Yeah.
So the
have to get the-
kryptonite he keeps on himself.
Yeah. Yeah, you have like 6 testicles back, Bruce.
There's 2 behind your ear here.
They're not testicles, they're tumors. Cut them out and let's go. And I also don't want to talk about just the condition of the skin on your back. It looks like a road atlas back there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he has a heart attack, and then this dude's like, oh, I'm going to crush his fucking brain with a wrench. And then Batman just grabs a gun off the ground, and he points it at this dude's face, and he's like shaking while he's having a heart attack. And that gun might as well be made of ghosts.
Mm-hmm. That guy, this hoodlum, who was prepared to murder this woman that they've kidnapped. I guess he's never had a gun pointed at him before.
Look, man. Put yourself in his shoes for a second. You've met Batman.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
But Batman's been around for a while. You know one thing about Batman.
Right. You know the one thing you're guaranteed to be safe from when you're around Batman.
Batman doesn't kill, and he certainly doesn't use guns. But this one's about to shoot you in the face, so his shit-filled costume isn't found by the cops the next morning. Aging billionaire Bruce Wayne found with his forehead caved in by a pipe wrench or a propeller, an airplane wrench.
Right. It's like his lawyers still intervene as much as they legally can. So like the news report is like an unrelated pile of 20 pounds of human shit was found next to Bruce Wayne's body.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's
an unrelated incident.
I guarantee you he pissed himself during this fight. When he had that heart attack, there's a 0% chance that...
As he's getting his ribs tattooed with a wrench? Yeah. Yeah. No, he for sure the inside of his costume's not dry. I mean, that's a guarantee, and I almost it's probably more leaking than it is urinating at that point.
I'm surprised he didn't short it out.
Right, Alfred, it happened again.
Anyway, the guy runs into the arms of the police.
Yeah, he's so desperate to get away from armed Batman.
I guess rightfully so.
Honestly, yeah, I'd be like, take me to jail right now.
Just go. I'm ready to go.
It's like a low-level gangster finds out the boss has bailed him out. It's like, no, I'd like to stay in jail. Please keep me in prison.
And so Bruce comes out and he's like looking at the gun. He takes off his fucking mask and we see he's like, oh, he's a little bit older, but he's not the guy we've seen in the commercials.
Yeah.
So we're not at full Batman Beyond yet. And then he's just like, nope, drops the gun, and we cut to the Bat Cave, and we see it's like the trophy room. Harley's costume is up. There's all the old Bat family costumes, including the new one that he is now putting under glass, and he says, never again. Turns the lights out. That's the end of Batman, Tom.
It is. That's the end of this show, actually. We're not going to watch anymore, because that's it.
And now we have our intro, which fucking shreds. Wow. 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 And then we see 20 years later. So now we're in 2039. It's much more futuristic. We're in like an elevator slash it's like a vertical train kind of a thing that's going up.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really know what it is. And we basically see in the news that Derek Powers is making money moves, buying up industrial firms. Terry's watching, but he gets bumped into by a member of what we refer to as the Jokers, a gang that sort of fashions their life after the Jokers. He's dressed, this is a dude dressed like Harley. I love the designs of the Joker characters.
Yeah, they're all appropriately douchey. Jokerified versions of Alex DeLarge's Droogs.
Yeah, but it's really cool because they take like small pieces, like they're very unique designs that are influenced by characters from before.
Right? Yeah, they don't all look the same. They're all like yeah.
It's really like there's one guy that we're gonna see later that's like he looks a lot like the Joker, but he has yellow paint over his mouth.
I thought he's wearing a mask. Like it's a Joker mask, and that's like his actual mouth. Like the mouth is open so he can speak.
I hadn't thought either way of that. I think I'm going to have to rewatch that. Son of a bitch.
It read to me as a mask, but it could be both. But the idea is that like nobody looks exactly the same and nobody looks exactly like the Joker. They just borrow different influences and build a costume out of like one specific piece. And it's pretty cool.
So this big dude is in like a Harley themed outfit, and he like spray paints the fucking TV. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, this is fucking stupid, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then he like basically starts to like shake down this girl and mugging her. He's like, oh, I made you laugh. You got to give me money.
Yeah. And I just real quick, I needed to say he's mugging you in the way that like, if you've ever been in a big city, it's like the dudes that aggressively give you their demo CDs and then demand you give them $10 for it. It's like, it's that kind of mugging.
Yeah. It's really not great.
No, it's like scary, but also like really frustrating.
Yes. And so Terry beats this dude to Christ.
Yeah, he fucking hip tosses him into the goddamn television.
Yeah. And then the guy just fucking bolts.
Yeah, he Zoidbergs out of the train almost.
Yeah,
like,
he starts doing like poses and like karate poses and stuff, and then as soon as it opens, he just like he gives him a raspberry and takes off.
He runs the fuck away because he knows he's gonna get his ass beat.
So then we see two teen girls, one of which we're gonna meet is Dana, and Dana is Terry's girlfriend.
Accidental Futurama reference there, but that's Lauren Tom, right, from Futurama.
It is, yeah. Look at how everything's tying together. And so we find out that there is there's wrestling going on, and we see like Terry's sort of like his Flash Thompson in this guy Nelson, who is voiced by Seth Green, and they are wrestling together. And Nelson's sort of got the upper hand on Terry, and Terry's like, you remind me of a Joker I met this morning, except he was prettier. And this dude spits in Terry. He hawks a loogie in Terry's mouth.
Yes, like right, like 2 inches from his face.
They don't pretend to animate it in a way that doesn't make you wonder if it went in his mouth.
Yeah.
And Terry drills this dude, and they have a fight.
Of course.
Yeah. Wouldn't you?
Yes. Anyone would.
It's like in Karate Kid when Bobby takes out Daniel at soccer tryouts with an aggressive slide tackle.
Oh, Johnny, you mean?
It's Bobby that does it.
Oh, okay.
Johnny doesn't take him out in the.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, he doesn't.
Practice,
yeah.
So then we see the dad. We see Terry's dad on a computer, and he gets a call to meet his buddy Harry on the landing. Now, did you notice who the dad was?
No.
Voiced by? It's Michael Gross.
Oh. They kind of animated him to look a little bit like Michael Gross too.
Exactly. He's a Michael Gross looking motherfucker in there.
He's just supposed to be the dad from Family Guy ties. Family Ties.
And his best friend that calls him, or his coworker Harry, looks like when they would animate an ugly crooner.
Oh,
he looks
yeah.
kind of like that. Like he has kind of that like Bing Crosby, but like nervous kind of look to him. Anyway, and he meets me, gives him a disc, and he's like, "Hey man, my hand's all fucked up. Something
gives
happens."
Him a Sony mini disc.
It's so funny that they. I mean, you don't expect him to predict everything, but yeah, he puts a mini disc into a ROM drive.
And that's like the one prediction that like every sci-fi thing got wrong, is that we would still be reliant on physical media.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
I think Minority Report might be the only one that nailed it.
Maybe, yeah.
So then we are introduced to Mr. Fix.
Who is George Takei?
George Takei is Mr. Fix. And Mr. Fix looks like if you merged all ethnic cartoon villains together and then gave them one grouping of stupid cartoon villain tells.
Yeah.
Like he's a Frankenstein of villains.
Right.
He's got like the one milky eye with the scar over it.
He looks almost like Minute from Sin City.
Yeah.
But more by way of a James Bond Jr. villain.
Yeah. And like very like he's that sort of like kind of like tan that you're like, oh, so you could just be anything. Like they very much make him a sort of, he's the same tan as the those future people from South Park that keep traveling back in time.
Yeah.
Like it's the same color.
Yeah.
And purposefully so. I think he's meant to be sort of this is just people are. This is what people are.
Yeah.
Here you go. But it's very interesting to see Mr. Fix and be like, oh, so you guys are just, this guy's a Frankenstein.
Yeah, just going hog wild. This guy looks like 18 different Indiana Jones bad guys.
Dude, he looks like so many bad guys.
This does have a kind of a Johnny Quest vibe to it too. Just the show in general.
Yeah, I could see that. So basically, Harry is grabbed for his meeting with Mr. Powers. Harry freaks and runs, but is caught, and we see that he's covered in these like black techno splotches.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, is that going to be a thing. But he's dragged away. And then Powers has McGinnis in a meeting, and he just gives him some bullshit about Harry having an allergic reaction, but he's under the best of care. He's like, great, when can I see him? He's like, you can see him on Monday. And he's like, he's like, oh, by the way, real quick.
Yeah.
There was a file that's missing that he had. Do you know where that shit is? And he's like, I have no idea. He's like, of course not. And then he nods over at Mr. Fix. And he's like, you should probably kill him.
Yeah, you're going to want to send some guys over to his house to murder him.
Yeah. So then
it's a nod they have prearranged with each other. When I nod like this, it means murder that guy.
If you see somebody nodding at Mr. Fix, it's not good news.
No, leave the country. If you see
yeah, you need to go into the program immediately. The dad puts the disc in the computer and discovers the shit about Power. He's like, oh my God. Terry interrupts. He's like, hey, I'm gonna take off. And he's like, you are grounded. He's like, that fight wasn't my fault. He's like, well, we'll talk about that when we're meeting with your counselor. He's like, Mom would let me go. He's like, you're not living with your mom. And they get to this fight. And then his dad's like, you need to learn how to be more responsible. He's like, oh, why? So I could be fucking cool like you or whatever. He really talks shit on his dad and then leaves. And spoiler alert, a car pulls up as he's going to leave, and his dad is going to be very dead.
Yeah, he's about to get the bejesus murdered out of him.
Yeah, he's going to be murdered hard.
Mm-hmm. Real hard.
Terry meets up with Dana in line at a club, and then fucking Nelson pulls up in his shitty car, and he's just being an asshole again.
Yeah, so like, fuck him up again.
But then the Joker gang pulls up and starts harassing all the teens, including Dana. And like at one point in time, like they like pick her up and they're riding with her on a motorcycle. And Terry beats everyone to Christ.
He beats them so badly that I just assumed everyone in the future had super strength. Like it was like a cyberpunk type deal where people have like augments and shit, because he's throwing dudes over cars.
Yeah, he's Gotham Strong. That doesn't change.
He's fucking Gotham Strong, which we had to take out of the store.
Yeah. Oh, did we?
We got a takedown notice over that, which is weird because they don't own that image. I don't know. Anyway.
Wow, that's interesting.
I guess the word Gotham? I don't know.
Yeah. Put it back up.
We might.
Fuck them.
Sell it elsewhere.
Fuck you, Warner Brothers. What are you going to do? Sue us over the name of our fucking podcast? Eat shit.
Anyway.
I'm like, don't they have? Isn't there fucking copyright going to be up soon?
I hope so.
Batman and everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, he beats the living Christ out of them, steals a bike, and then leads them on a chase.
Yes.
Big chase. Big chase. He is biking also very recklessly. He's driving on cars. He's going down bridges. Mm-hmm. He is borderline suicidal.
Right. He's being introduced to us the way many protagonists in the 90s were introduced to us, where like Thrill Seeker was a thing.
He's extreme. Yeah.
Yeah. He's extreme.
He's a bag of corn nuts.
Yeah.
Like he's fucking. He's everything. He's the brand new Baja Blast of Mountain Dew of people.
He is Baja blasting his way to the outskirts of Gotham City.
He sure is. And so they notice that, like, the Jokers that can see him, they notice that he's on sort of an exit that goes towards Gotham Harbor. So they know they're going to chase him. And then he almost hits Bruce Wayne because he's pulling up to Wayne Manor. And he eats shit. And now he's cornered. Mm-hmm. And Wayne just goes, leave him alone and get off my property. You're trespassing.
And they're not yet. They're not inside his gate.
Yeah. I mean, it might be that the road itself is also
I would not be surprised if that was a private highway.
If I could be honest here.
Like, Bruce probably owns the entire mountain, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't he?
And so they're like, who do you think you're talking to, man? We're the Jokers. And he kind of like smiles and he goes, sure you are.
Yeah.
And he fucks this dude. He's beating dudes bad.
Yeah, he's shaving decades off of their lives.
Also, there's one scene where a guy swings a baseball bat at Terry and Terry jumps over the bat. But it's like swung ribs high. And I'm like, well, that just seems unnecessary, Terry. You don't want to leave the ground. You should have ducked.
He's trying to impress us. They really want us to know that he's a fantastic athlete, even though the only sport we've seen him compete in is one where you absolutely do not need to have a vertical leap of 4.5 feet.
He is sky high in this jump.
Yeah.
It's a crouching tiger jump, man. It's crazy. He stands on the bat and kicks the guy in the face.
Yeah. He just starts running along a bamboo frond. We're like, where the fuck did that come from?
Bruce is dominating these dudes. They leave, and then his heart is just fucking gone. He's like, my medicine. You need to bring my ass back to the house.
Yeah.
Ace confronts him, and Bruce is like, he's fine. And he goes, nice dog. He's like, no, he is not.
Yeah. He's like, oh, please don't make that mistake. That's Damien's dog in the new continuity, isn't it?
Yeah, there's been an Ace the Bat Hound often.
For a while, right.
Yeah, like they I think the first appearance is like probably Silver Age, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's when they were giving everyone dogs.
Everyone gets an animal.
Yep.
Superman
Batmite.
gets 7.
Yeah, he does. He sure does.
Okay, so Terry leaves as Bruce is falling asleep, but Ace scares him, so he's like, oh, I'm going to call my dad. But then he sees that there's a fucking bat stuck in the clock.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's a fucking bat stuck in this clock. And he's like, all right, man, I'll get you out. And so he's like trying to get the face of the clock open so he can get the bat out.
And
he's like, maybe he can bite this.
Bat cave.
Whoops, opens up the fucking bat cave.
I did like that they, and this must have been intentional, because in the original comic, and then also in the, Batman Begins actually hadn't come out yet. So in the original comic, that's pretty much like Bruce just sees a bat in his house. And that's like, like the beginning of the whole thing.
Yeah, it flies through his fucking window.
Yeah. And then they kind of use this version of it where it's in Batman Begins, where it's like a mix of the two, where he sees it loose in his house, but it can't. That's how like he finds the cave beneath the house. So I thought that was cool.
And it's also interesting to note too that his father is also dead at the time that he sees this bat.
Yes.
Because remember that in the original one, it's like, yes, father, I shall become a bat.
Right.
So it's kind of like he doesn't even know that he's fathering.
If you've not read, and I know it's entirely possible most people who are fans of Batman have not read old Batman comics, because why would you? They're mostly not good. But if you haven't read some of the old Batman comics, you're really missing out on how jack fuck out of his goddamn mind he is in every fucking panel.
Golden Age Batman is fucking crazy. He was killing everybody.
He's just a murderer. That's all he is. He's a murderer in a bat costume.
Yeah, he's a gangster in sweatpants. That's all he is.
Basically, he drives around in a fucking Studebaker.
It's great. It's so great. It's fantastic.
Anyway,
so he sees all the bat stuff and he's like, "Whoa!" And then Bruce hits him from behind. He's like, "Get out!" So it says Terry's leaving. He's walking home, and then he sees the cops, and there's Joker graffiti. And then his mom hugs him. She's like, "Oh my God, you're okay." She's like, "There was a robbery. The Joker surprised your father." He's like, "Well, where's Dad?" And she's like, "Oh,
Oh, nobody told you.
Nobody told you.
It's like, yeah, Mom, I'm walking up to the house asking you what happened.
Yeah.
Why on earth would you think I already knew that Dad was dead?
So he runs in, and then it cuts to the news talking about the murder and the funeral info and everything like that. And then we see Powers at the funeral talking about making those criminals pay for their heinous act. And then the mom turns off the TV. The younger bro's like, hey, it was about Dad. I was watching that. She's like, you do not need to see that.
Nope. Also, your head is huge. I'm concerned about you.
Yeah.
The kid looks like a nightmare. His little brother looks ridiculous.
Yeah, because he's got no pupils.
Yeah.
I mean, he's only pupils. Excuse me.
Right. It's like everybody else. Like he's from Tiny Toon Adventures, and everybody else looks like
it's Popeye rules.
Yeah.
There we go. So she goes to Terry. She's like, hey, your friend Dana called. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. He's really mad. He's like, why would Dad open the door for them? How could they trace him back to me, back to him? It's my fault. We could have fought them off together. And he's thinking that he's like, oh, this is my fault. I did this. I got
He's
Dad
thinking
killed.
it's payback for him beating up the Joker thugs.
He's like, but also, why would Dad open the door for Jokers?
He probably wouldn't, would he?
No, he sure wouldn't. And he's got so much regret, and he's just like, I'm such a jerk. And so, and then it cuts to him. He's moving back in with his mom and his brother, and then finds the disc. It's just like there, and I'm like, oh, did they not take the disc when they killed the dad?
Right. What was the point of murdering him if you weren't also going to ransack the place? I mean, they did. He finds it like behind a picture frame that they for some reason did. Actually, no, he drops it in a box.
No, he drops it. Just falls out. It falls
out of a box. He's carrying. Yeah, that's true. We don't actually see the inside of the apartment, so we have no idea. Like, man, damn, they need to hire better dudes. Powers.
Yeah. So he looks into it and then runs out in a hurry. And then we see that they're under surveillance.
Yeah, because of course they
like
are.
What looks like basically a security guard is on the phone. And he's watching Terry leave. He's like, yeah, it looks like you got lucky. So Terry Dana drops him off at Wayne Manor, and he basically like rings the speaker, and he's like, something stinks in your company, and I think it cost my old man his life. He shows him the disc, and he's like, look, I'd take this to the cops, but you know how cozy they are with Powers. And then still nothing, no response. And then he goes, you're no Batman, you whacked out old fraud. And then the gate
that's when he opens.
And Bruce is in the window, and that is the end.
Yeah, it would be funny if the next episode started with him just beating the ever-loving shit out of Terry with his cane. That's the only reason he opened the gate, was so he could kick his ass.
Yeah, who aren't I? Who aren't I?
Call me a fraud, did you?
Alfred.
Alfred. Just cuts over to Alfred's tombstone because he's been dead for 42 years.
For 40 years. Yeah.
I have been dead for multiple generations.
Yeah, that's
anyway,
it.
That's a sode. Oh man, this is exciting. It's exciting. We're starting a new thing that's like good and that I have never seen before.
It's great. It's great. I'm excited. So yeah, we're going to be checking out next week. We'll be taking a look at the conclusion of the pilot Rebirth, and then we will be introduced after that to our first big recurring member of the Rogues Gallery. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, it's basically Lady Clayface.
Yeah. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to introduce you to Ink.
Yeah.
A very sort of, what if Venom didn't have a human host?
Yeah, I mean, it's very Clayface too. Like they well, spoilers, but they have to deal with her kind of the same way that you would with Clayface.
Yeah. But that being said, that's a sode.
It sure is, Jeff.
What do you got to plug?
Oh man, well if you're here and you're listening, that means you're already a patron. So thank you so much. Like genuinely, truly, honestly, we cherish all of you. We also have a store, tpublic.com/store/gamefullyunemployed, where you can get t-shirts, except for the Gotham Strong one, masks, mugs, posters, all kinds of things, except for the Gotham Strong t-shirt. So go check that out if you want to be depressed that you can't buy a Gotham Strong t-shirt. And I also been doing writing over at Collider. You can check that out if you want to, or if you don't want to, that's fine. Jeff, now you go. Now it's your turn. to say
Well,
things.
Jeff Has Cool Friends episode 5 just dropped yesterday, Tom, and my guest is Dana Gould, and boy, do we talk. It's a blast of an episode. It's so much fun. You're definitely going to want to listen to that one. You can check it out at patreon.com/Jeff May. If you don't want to give me money, 1, fuck you. But 2, you can wait until next Tuesday, and it will be available for free everywhere. It'll be censored. And also fuck you to the guy that fucking gave me a low vote on Apple Podcasts because of the censoring. He was like, I don't know why the curses had to be bleeped out.
Did you listen?
Sign up for the Patreon.
Yeah.
Fuckface.
Give me $5. You can get all the fucks you want.
honestly, y'all can just sign up for my Patreon for $5, listen to the 5 episodes that I have up already, and then just cancel your subscription. Who cares?
Yeah.
But also don't do that. I'm starving. But you can, of course, check that out. And again, you can check out tpublic/user/Jeff May. I have a lot of really cool T-shirts available up there that you can give me money. Give another company money, and I get some of that money.
Yeah.
To buy those. They're fantastic. Lots of great designs. Shout out to Doc Garby for those vintage comic art versions of Jeff Has Cool Friends.
They are extremely fun. Yeah.
They are very good. And then on top of that, of course, You Don't Even Like Sports, a sports podcast for people who don't like sports, and the Unpopular Opinion podcast, both available on the Unpops network. I think that's it.
I think you got everything. Yeah, I think that covers it.
That's it. Yes, I do I do lots of podcasts. Sorry.
Listen, man, you don't have to tell me about it. I guess that's it. Bye.
That's it. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I should have known you wouldn't care. You're no Batman, you whacked out old fraud.
Our artwork is produced by Justin Brown. You can follow him on Twitter at Justin T. Brown and find more of his artwork at artnessbyjustinbrown.com and justinbrown.info.